I once left a room full of people. I stood up quietly, walked to the door, closed it behind me, waited. I thought someone would come looking. Someone would ask, "Are you all right?" Someone would notice that I was gone. No one came. That was the day I discovered loneliness has very little to do with being alone. You can sit at the busiest dinner table, laugh at the right moments, answer every question, smile for every photograph, and still carry a silence no one around you ever hears. Carl Jung once suggested that the greatest privilege in life is becoming who you truly are. But before that becomes possible, many of us spend years becoming who everyone else needs us to be. We become agreeable, reliable, funny, strong, helpful. We learn exactly which version of ourselves earns acceptance, and little by little, something begins to disappear. Not our voice, our presence, because there is a strange loneliness that appears when everyone knows your role, but no one truly knows you. What if loneliness isn't the absence of people? What if it's the absence of being seen? And if that's true, then the question isn't, why am I alone? It's something far more unsettling. How did I become invisible while sitting in the middle of everyone I loved? There are people who spend every weekend surrounded by family and still feel completely alone. There are husbands who lie beside their wives every night, yet haven't felt truly understood in years. There are wives who prepare dinner, smile at the table, ask everyone about their day, then quietly wash the dishes, carrying a sadness no one ever notices. There are fathers who solved everyone else's problems, but never felt safe enough to speak about their own. There are mothers who spent decades making a house feel like home, only to wake up one morning and wonder, does anyone really know me anymore? That kind of loneliness doesn't make noise. It simply becomes your normal. Human beings become accustomed to almost anything, even loneliness, especially when it arrives one quiet day at a time. Carl Jung believed that each of us develops something he called the persona. Think of it as the face we slowly learn to wear so we can belong. At first, it's harmless. As children, we discover that certain parts of ourselves are welcomed. We learn when to smile, when to stay quiet, when to be strong, when not to cry. Little by little, we become experts at being the version of ourselves that other people find easiest to love. And one day, without realizing it, everyone knows the mask, but hardly anyone knows the person wearing it. It happens at work. You're respected, reliable, the one people depend on, yet no one ever asks, "How are you, really?" It happens at family gatherings. Everyone remembers what you do. Few remember what you're carrying. It happens in friendships. You become the listener, the encourager, the dependable one. And after years of helping everyone else feel understood, you quietly realize no one has asked about your heart in a very long time. The tragedy isn't that people stop loving you. It's that they become so familiar with the role you play, they forget there's a person behind it. But something changed the day I stopped asking, "Why doesn't anyone understand me?" and started asking a far more uncomfortable question. Have I spent so many years hiding behind who I needed to be that no one has ever had the chance to know who I really am? That question changed the rest of my life. Have you ever noticed how rarely we are taught to ask ourselves, "Who am I?" instead? We spend most of our lives asking a different question. Who do I need to become so people will accept me? As children, we quickly discover which parts of ourselves receive love. The quiet child is praised for never causing trouble. The funny child learns that laughter keeps the peace. The responsible child becomes everyone's helper. The strong child discovers that showing pain only makes other people uncomfortable. None of these roles are chosen deliberately. They grow slowly, like vines climbing a wall, until one day the role has become so familiar that even we forget where it ends and where we begin. Imagine an actor who never leaves the stage. Morning, afternoon, evening, every conversation, every relationship, every smile, another performance. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The audience applauds. They admire the character. They celebrate the performance. But backstage, the actor becomes exhausted. Carl Jung warned that when we identify too completely with the persona, we slowly lose contact with the deeper self waiting quietly behind it. And perhaps that explains why some of the people who seem most loved quietly feel the most alone. Isn't it strange? We often assume the busiest person has the fullest life. The funniest person is the happiest. The strongest person needs the least support. But sometimes, those are simply the roles they've become so good at playing that no one thinks to look any deeper. There is a sentence that many people never say out loud. I'm tired of being the strong one. Not because they no longer care, not because they want to stop loving, but because somewhere along the way, everyone became comfortable leaning on them. While almost no one asked who they leaned on, they became the listener, the peacemaker, the dependable friend, the reliable parent, the calm voice in every crisis. And little by little, people stopped seeing the human being beneath the role. The tragedy wasn't that they were forgotten, it was that they slowly forgot they were allowed to need someone too. But what if loneliness isn't asking us to find more people? What if it's inviting us to stop hiding? Because the moment I finally stopped performing, something unexpected happened. I lost a few relationships, but I finally began finding myself. There came a day when I became too tired to keep pretending. Not pretending to be happy, pretending to be unaffected, pretending I never needed encouragement, pretending I always had the answers. For years, I thought strength meant carrying everything alone, until one quiet afternoon, I asked myself a question that changed my life. If no one truly knows me, have I ever truly allowed myself to be known? That question hurt, because it revealed something I had never considered. I had spent so many years protecting everyone else that almost no one had ever been invited into my own inner world. Carl Jung believed that the second half of life carries a different invitation. The first half often asks, how do I become accepted? The second half quietly asks, who am I when I stop trying to be accepted? That is the beginning of individuation, not becoming someone new, becoming someone true. It is the slow courage to let your outside life finally resemble your inside one, to laugh because you genuinely feel joy, to say no without apologizing for existing, to admit that you sometimes feel lonely, to stop performing strength and begin living honestly. That kind of life may attract fewer people, but it often creates far deeper relationships. It's interesting. We spend years decorating the house while quietly forgetting to live inside it. Perhaps the soul feels something similar. It doesn't long for perfection. It simply wants to come home. Something surprising happened. After I stopped trying so hard to appear unbreakable, the conversations became quieter, but they became real. I no longer needed everyone to understand me. I only needed the courage to stop hiding. Some relationships faded. Others deepened in ways I never expected, because the people who truly care don't fall in love with your performance. They feel safe in your honesty. Loneliness doesn't always disappear because more people arrive. Sometimes it disappears because one genuine conversation replaces 100 shallow ones. And then I realized something I wish I had understood years earlier. Belonging isn't something you earn by becoming who everyone expects. It begins the moment you stop hiding from the people capable of loving the real you, and that's when the room finally starts to feel different. Looking back now, I realize something I couldn't see back then. The room wasn't asking me to disappear. I had simply become so accustomed to making myself smaller that I no longer noticed I was doing it. I laughed before I found something funny. I apologized before anyone was offended. I agreed before I had even asked myself what I truly believed. Little by little, I became easier for everyone else to understand, while becoming harder for myself to recognize. And perhaps that's the quiet tragedy Carl Jung wanted us to see. The greatest distance we can ever experience is not the distance between ourselves and other people. It is the distance between ourselves and the person we were meant to become. One day, someone asked me, "Do you still feel lonely?" I thought about it for a long time. Then I realized the answer had quietly changed. I still spend time alone. I still walk through seasons where very few people truly understand me. But loneliness no longer feels the same, because there is an extraordinary peace that arrives when you stop abandoning yourself just to avoid disappointing other people. You begin speaking more honestly, resting without guilt, saying no without writing a speech to explain it, smiling because you genuinely feel joy, crying because pretending no longer feels necessary. And somewhere, almost without noticing, the room begins to feel different. Not because everyone suddenly understands you, but because, for the first time, you understand yourself. We spend so much of life trying to find the people who will finally understand us. But perhaps the journey begins when we finally stop hiding from ourselves. So, why did you feel alone in a room full of people? Sometimes because no one asked the deeper questions. Sometimes because everyone became comfortable with the role you quietly accepted. Sometimes because the person they knew wasn't the whole of who you were. But here's what I hope you remember after today. Don't measure your life by the number of voices around you. Measure it by the number of places where you no longer have to pretend. Don't spend your remaining years becoming easier to accept while becoming harder to recognize. There is nothing selfish about letting your real self finally have a seat at the table, because the opposite of loneliness was never popularity. It was authenticity, and perhaps that is why Carl Jung believed the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. One day, you'll walk into a room. People will still be talking. They'll still be laughing. Life will go on, exactly as it always has. But something inside you will be wonderfully different. You will no longer be searching for permission to exist. You will simply take your seat, not as the person everyone expected, but as the person you finally came home to. Before you leave, I'd love to ask you something. Have you ever sat in a room full of people and quietly felt invisible? Looking back now, do you think you were unseen? Or had you spent so many years hiding behind a role that no one knew the real you? Share your story in the comments. Someone reading it tonight may realize they're not as alone as they thought. And if this film reminded you that authenticity is the beginning of belonging, I'd be honored to have you join me for the next journey.